And now we're going to move on to using knowledge graphs to improve Gen AI. And I want to welcome Dave Clark, the EVP for Semantic Graph Technology for Synaptica, part of Squirro. Dave is a longtime supporter of KM World, and his Synaptica company recently joined with Squirro, and he has done lots of work on standards in controlled vocabularies. He leads lots of research and development of software solutions for taxonomy, ontology management, text analytics, and auto-categorization, image annotation and indexing, and linked data management. Please welcome Dave Clark.
Okay, nice to be back. Always nice to be back for the annual pilgrimage to KM World. And Lewis, that was probably definitely the most exciting and inspiring keynote I've seen. So thank you. I have one request. Can I see you at the end for the tip-off for next year's Kentucky Derby? I'll find you out wherever you are. Okay, so there was big news for us at Synaptica about just over four months ago. We were acquired and merged with a company called Squirro, headquartered out of Switzerland, but with offices in London, Singapore, New York. And this was a bringing together of semantic technology and generative AI technology. It's been an incredible 4+ months. And what we've really done is kind of integrate the tooling for the semantic layer and for generative AI. And in only 4 months, we're already delivering GraphRag solutions in multiple industry sectors. So we've had a tremendous validation that these two companies belong together. I want to talk briefly about the core value of what Synaptica does and what we kind of brought to this marriage. So we are a software vendor. Generically, you would call us a TOMS system, Taxonomy and Ontology Management System. We do this in Graph, so we're also part of building out knowledge graphs. And the summary, the elevator pitch of what my company has done actually for well over 2 decades is we help people to organize, classify, and discover knowledge. Knowledge organization is a discipline in information science. It's all about creating knowledge organization systems, formal representations of knowledge, aka taxonomies and ontologies. And that then leads to how do we use and apply those knowledge schemes to content, to databases, and that's the classification process. And then all of that's worthless unless you surface it, unless you help people to discover knowledge. And so things like guided search, navigation, insights engines, and now, of course, chat conversational interfaces are what knowledge discovery is about. And it can be very much powered by the knowledge organization systems and quality metadata. What is it all for? It's all for the things on the right. It's for unsiloing content that is necessarily going to live in Contentful and Adobe Experience Manager and SharePoint and Confluence, and all of these disparate information repositories can be unified through the use of TOM systems and getting metadata applied consistently across those. Precision and recall, as anyone with an information science background knows, are natural opposites. What you do to improve recall will decrease precision. What you do to increase precision will decrease recall. That's a natural phenomenon of text searching. With good quality TOM systems, you can actually optimize recall and optimize precision. That's basically reducing the amount of time wasted on finding the right information and improving the quality or the accuracy of the information. With knowledge graphs, we have the ability to do inferencing. And a simple way of thinking of that is you're inferring new information, new knowledge out of existing knowledge. And that is one of the key value adds out of the knowledge graph. Very briefly, process automation. This is something that we are working on and is really the result of the ability to apply generative AI with this stack. So end-to-end, this is what we as two companies who've come together now deliver. And this is kind of like the justification of why we came together. So the blue boxes, very loose, very roughly, are the things that Synaptica did. And the orange boxes are the things that Squirro did. And we now have this chain of value, this chain that is belong together, always belong together. So on the far left, we're doing the TOM system. We're curating taxonomies. We're curating ontologies. We're passing through to classification and information extraction. That is also able to feed back into the TOM system, novel entity extraction, novel fact extraction. We are then able to pass this, the results of classification into a knowledge graph, what we would call a content-aware knowledge graph. So classifiers typically are going to pass back metadata values to the content system in which they originated or to a search index. That's all good. But if we bring back information about the content into the knowledge graph, then we build up this rich awareness of how content is being used. And lastly, all of this can feed directly into semantic search, into GraphRag and other GenAI applications. So this kind of end-to-end solution is why we came together as two companies and why we're better together. Changing track a little bit. So a lot of people will have heard of this quotation. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's attributed to Albert Einstein, but I really don't think it is. It's probably a pre-LLM world hallucination. But it was a convenient talking point for this, which is, wouldn't it be insane if we built machines that gave a different answer over and over again in response to the same question? And that's exactly what we've done with generative AI. And just go do it. Just go put in the same question again and again, and you will get different answers. And that is because they're probabilistic in nature. And they're pretty good. I mean, believe me, I am all over Gen AI. I love Gen AI, and it is totally transforming the world in which I've worked for a couple of decades. But know it for its strengths, know it for its weaknesses. It is probabilistic. It's based on adjacency of word patterns and so forth, and they will get you so far. So why knowledge graphs? What can knowledge graphs bring to Gen AI? Why do it at all? And that why do it at all is because probably the right answer isn't good enough. In many enterprise cases, we need more certainty. And with a knowledge graph, we can provide a more deterministic rather than probabilistic. And it's not one or the other. It's combining and blending the two of these things together is where we need to be. So what is a knowledge graph? It's worth saying this word you will see all over. There are many companies doing knowledge graphs. There's many graph databases behind it. But they're used in lots of different ways. Very briefly, there's classification graphs. Think of them as traditional taxonomies. These are things that describe a world. They're used to annotate content. They're used to classify content. There are content graphs, which is what happens when you index content, document, database records typically to data in a taxonomy or ontology. That creates a web of connected documents and a web of document concept connections. Agentic graphs, these are some of the things we're having the most fun with. This is where we model a business's process within the graph. And when we model business process, we can deliver value like business process automation, because we're helping the wonderful RAG system to not just invent an answer based on the probability of word patterns in documents. We're giving it the playbook. We're giving it a process that this business must operate on. There's also user graphs, which is where we collect information about users and user groups and what they're interested in. And that is also very useful for feeding into personalization experiences and access control. It's not just a one-way street. So the knowledge graph can bring all that value to GenAI, but GenAI is a wonderful tool for gathering information out of the conversations that are had and out of the content that it can see and passing back into the knowledge graph, taxonomy enrichments, content graph enrichments. So it's very much a two-way street. Where is the semantic layer in all of this? Hype cycles are so frequent these days, we don't have time to really digest the previous one before something else takes over. Semantic layer is terribly important. I have borrowed from our esteemed colleagues at Enterprise Knowledge a couple of their graphics on the left and middle there, in which they are explaining what the semantic layer is. And you have data sources, you have taxonomy, you have ontology, you have a knowledge graph. That's the layer in the middle, and then you have applications that are using that. It's a great graphic, well done, EK. Where does the semantic layer fit in our world? It's at the heart of what Squirro does. So bringing in the data sources, bringing in the knowledge graph and the ontology is absolutely core to our use of GenAI and the total picture that we can deliver with that. I'm going to give a couple of brief examples for this. So we built, and this is in the agentic graph or an agentic ontology. So the idea of an agentic ontology is you structure process-oriented concepts and relationships and properties that generative AI agents can use to help them make decisions and help them act. And when we do this with the transparency of the graph and the nodes all being visible to the taxonomy ontology team, the control rests with the people who are formalizing the knowledge models. So we have basically human agency over the generative AI agents. And this is something we started building immediately when our companies came together. And we have some examples here. I've got one example which is genericized, but basically we took a customer support situation, which Lewis mentioned customer support as being one of these areas of interest. So the chat engine is going to take the input. The graph tells it, don't answer that question until you have asked these other questions. There are dependencies before you're allowed to answer this question. And they're explicitly modeled in the graph. Go ask them this, go ask them that. We also can put in the graph, go do a function call and look up values from this system to inform what the current state of this server is. And when you've gathered all of the required information, then you're allowed to answer this question. And this is where you go, and it tells you to go to trigger the auto-generation of a JIRA ticket that is routed to the right place in the customer support system. This is automation of business process through basically extending taxonomies and ontologies, which we've all been doing. So Squirro have put together all of this into an enterprise-grade GenAI platform. It has got the semantic layer components. It has got amazing data connectors. If you want to just say, point to this Google Drive, point to this SharePoint term store, point to this Confluence source, it can gather data from that, feed it into the classification process, feed it into the RAG process, and it's pretty much out-of-the-box connectivity, which is, believe me, wonderful because I've been wanting that forever. It also has all the APIs to feed into downstream systems. A little plug there from Gartner, which is recognizing the achievements of Squirrow in conversational and generative AI. Very nearly the last slide. So we're so rapidly doing projects in diverse industries. It is kind of proof and validation that the semantic layer and the generative AI layers belong together and that we can do great things. So very briefly here, business to consumer services. We got matching processes with RAG, semantic RAG, that took them to over 95% from about 80%. We've got automation in telecommunications industry of how ticket handling is working, which is delivering a massive ROI on the streamlined automation of that function. And in banking and financial services, we have ROI on risk management for very, very regulatory compliant sector. Takeaways, knowledge graphs definitely can improve Gen AI. Accuracy, insights, automation, personalization. It's reciprocal. Gen AI is going to push back into the graph and improve the graph in that very process. There's one of these three takeaways I'm highlighting, it's takeaway 2, which is in this community, there are a lot of people who've spent a lot of effort building taxonomies and ontologies. You are sitting on a gold mine of information that can empower Gen AI initiatives. And by combining the graph with the Gen AI, you have that kind of sweet spot. So Squirrow has built out the tooling for that. And lastly, we have about a cricket pitch-sized booth this year. So you can find us between booths 301 to 305 in the expo hall. Love to talk to you, love to find out what you're doing. Thanks very much.